Got my represent the champions. This was their 2020 championship shirt. Official locker room gear. Yeah, that was a pretty scary injury last night's game. I watched most of it. I watched like the first period and the third period. I was pretty busy. I was recording a show yesterday, but it was really scary, that Evander Kane injury. I really hope that he's okay. I mean, when someone gets slit on the wrist like that, you just wonder, like, oh, how is their hand gonna recover from something like that? I mean, how much kind of blood exfoliation is there in that kind of an area? Because it doesn't really happen that often. It's a very rare kind of hockey injury. But he's out 3 to 4 months. It looks like that's such a good sign, because he has been playing really well. And I mean, the Oilers, I think they got pretty lucky yesterday against us, to be honest. Tampa Bay just had too many rolling pucks, and then the offside and the goal that got disallowed. And, the Oilers fought really well. I think Vasilevsky should be playing a little bit better. Obviously, by his standards, he hasn't been playing that great. But I'm not worried about him at all. If people are concerned, they're looking at Vasilevsky and they're thinking, they're actually suggesting what? Vasilevsky is struggling right now. It's okay to say. As a Lightning fan, I know that he's struggling. But I'm not worried a bit. Why should I be? If I was worried about Vasilevsky, what am I suggesting? He's the best goalie in the league, okay? Who do you want between the pipes if you could pick anybody in the NHL to win you a 7-game series? That's why I'm not worried about the Lightning, because they just know how to play when the games matter. The games don't matter right now. It's November, okay? Let's relax. The games do matter to Bruce Boudreau and the Vancouver Canucks. Boudreau's almost gone. I don't think he's going to make it through to 2023. Mostly because I think that all it's really going to take is for the Canucks to have a 4-game losing streak, which is way more likely to happen than a 4-game winning streak. They lost again today. They are now 4-7-3 on the season. That's not as bad as some of the other teams, like the Sharks and the Ducks and the Blues. There are some other teams down east that have been struggling as well, but the Canucks lost 5-2 tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. That doesn't look good at all. They were coming back, but they lost ultimately. That they just can't figure it out. That's kind of like the story. The Canucks were down 4-0. They got it close to 4-2. They had a power play. They hit 2 posts. It's just not enough. Too little, too late. That's not what we need. Now, the excuse that you could make up to suggest that Boudreau should probably play a little bit longer than you're suggesting, Matt, is because of how the Canucks really aren't in a huge hole if you're looking at where they sit in the standings. So they have 11 points. They've been able to lose some close ones, win some close ones. But they are ultimately, the points have added up to them only being 1 point behind Calgary in the final wildcard spot in the West. So that looks great, If they beat Montreal tonight, they would have been in the wildcard spot, which is crazy to think of because they started the season 0-7, essentially. That's just, man, it's crazy how we can see a team start 0-7 and then they're in the playoffs, It's just a huge season. In other news, in the good old basketball world, the Minnesota Wild, they lose again. This is obviously a very frustrating one. They lose at home to the Phoenix Suns. A lot of attention, of course, the Minnesota Wild. How much of an expectation are we suggesting to them that they are contenders this year? So the Western Conference already is very difficult. It's already easy to see that it's going to be very, very hard for them. Even adding Gobert, they lost a lot of pieces. But the biggest problem in that whole trade is not just that they inherit the extension that the Utah Jazz gave him before he came over to Minnesota, which was a 5-year, $205 million deal. That is, to me personally, I don't think that Gobert is worth that much. And so far this season, he's been averaging more rebounds than points, which isn't good. Granted, he has a very specific role as a rim protector and a rebounder. Scoring is tertiary. Furthermore, you cannot be relying on their big four, which is what they have now in Edwards, Russell, Towns, and himself, Gobert. So there's a lot of reliance heavily on your bench to produce, on your starters to produce at least 80 points a game. Tonight, Wednesday night, whenever you're listening to this, Towns and D'Angelo Russell, they had 11 points each. That is simply unacceptable for them. They have no depth because they traded away all their depth. They lost Vanderbilt, Beasley. They lost, who else did they lose? Beverly. And we're going to get into the just how awful this trade is, but how good things are looking for Utah. I mean, I don't know how Utah spent this, but not only did Utah get Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, Beverly signed with the Lakers, but then again from Cleveland, they also inherited Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton. So that's 5 players right there. 4 players, essentially. The net is 4 players, but you also got 7 first-round picks. That is huge. You're inheriting this guy's $40 million a year contract to get you 12-12, and you trade away 3 players plus, actually it was 4 players, plus 4 first-round picks. That was from the Timberwolves side. And then Cleveland, in the Donovan Mitchell trade, gave Utah 3 more, so that's 7 more for Utah. Dude, these picks are more significant to me than the players that they got for Gobert and for Mitchell. This is just ridiculous. But back to the Timberwolves struggles. I mean, D'Angelo Russell is just not good. He has not been a guy. He has not been the same since he was an all-star with the Nets. He should have stayed with the Nets. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was him being the primary ball handler. I think that him and Towns are a great combo. And by extension, him and Towns and Gobert, perhaps. I don't think this is Adam Finch's fault. I think this is the players and the management. Because I would much rather have Vanderbilt and Beasley and Beverly and my picks and get something else if I want to be making these huge moves, which I do. Back to D'Angelo Russell. On Monday, he shot 10 of his 12 shots were threes. 40% of his field goals that he makes are three-pointers. But he shoots 29% from there. He shoots 71% from the free throw line. He was an all-star in Brooklyn. I remember he was really, really great. They did make the playoffs that one year, only to lose in 5 to the Sixers. I believe that was 2019 because he got traded to he signed with the Golden State Warriors. And I had no idea what to think of it. Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell? I don't even know which one's better because it's a very systematic formula for these two players. Definitely Russell is better off in Minnesota because I don't think there's any possibility that you could have another guard on the Warriors. It's just not a chance. That team is way too guard heavy. So there's problems out in Minnesota, especially since they're 5-7 to start the year. I mean, if we're talking about expectations, we're talking about the Lakers, we're talking about the start of the season that they've been having. Minnesota's having a similar struggle. They've been able to win a few games, but as far as I'm concerned, they cannot be taking down some of these heavy hitters like the Clippers, like Phoenix, like the Warriors. Once the Warriors get better, I have a feeling that they're not going to be – they're going to spin things around. It's still very early. I'm not writing out the Timberwolves. I do think that they have the possibility of being a contender because their team does look very, very good on paper. And when it's November, that's really all we can do to judge a team on. Quickly, Aaron Judge and Paul Goldschmidt win the Hank Aaron Award, respectively, American League, National League today. So it's not a particular type of award because it's a very general description. The best hitter from each league, which is voted on by the media and by the players. No surprises there. I also expect that both of these players are going to win MVP in their respective conferences already. that will be decided. They're going to announce those on November 17th. So next week. Very much looking forward to that. Only because I want to know who wins in the National League. Because that's really the only question that there is. I believe Nolan Arenado also got nominated. So fellow St. Louis Cardinal over there. I like to see that. Hopefully one of those guys is going to win National League MVP.